Perfect. And with that, let's get things started. Good afternoon to those of you like me on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you like President Killeen on Central Time. Welcome to the University of Illinois System's 2023 Town Hall on Federal Priorities. I'm Paul Weinberger. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Federal Relations, and I'm delighted to be the host for today's conversation with U of I System President Tim Killeen. As the 118th Congress gets underway, we've got a lot to talk about. We will begin with a presentation from President Killeen recapping our advocacy efforts and other highlights from the past 12 months. And he'll also talk about our priorities for legislative and executive action this year. That will be followed by a question and answer period. Many of you have already submitted questions when you registered. Thank you for that. We will answer as many of those as we can get to. Feel free to put other questions you may have in the chat or in the Q&A function. And if we don't get to them all today, we will be sure to follow up later. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce the 20th president of the University of Illinois System. Dr. Timothy Killeen took office in May 2015 and has led a surge of growth for the state's flagship university system, from enrollment to capital investments to fundraising. He brings with him more than 3 decades of experience as a teacher, as a researcher in geophysics and space sciences, and as a leader in both public higher education and scientific research agencies. President Killeen, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. I hope you all can hear me well, and a warm thank you and welcome to all of you for joining us in 2023. This is our 3rd annual event like this, and I recall that in 2022 I was bragging about our first grandchild arriving, and now we're within weeks of the first birthday. So life does move on, but I really appreciate your participation in this, and hopefully this will be a helpful session to you. Happy New Year, everybody. Before I begin my short summary, I'd like to introduce our new Executive Vice President, who's just joined us, and Vice President for Academic Affairs, Nick Jones. I think Nick is on the screen now. Nick takes over from Avijit Ghosh, who retired at the end of December after decades of service to the U of I system. Nick is in week 2. It's like day 12.5. So I won't put him on the spot, but unless I need to and have to, Nick. But I want you all to know his name and face. He joins us from Pennsylvania State University, where he served as Executive Vice President and Provost for 9 years, and most recently as the Special Advisor to the President. He's not, to my knowledge, bringing any Nittany Lions with him, but he is returning to U of I, where he served as a department chair some time ago. Nick will be a key partner for me and advisor, and I'm just delighted that he's plugging in as frequently and as intensively as he is. As always, our summary starts with affordability, access, completion, economic growth, all the things you'd expect from your university system. And these elements inform, as always, our priorities for the upcoming year. They remain front and center, as you will hear from me. But we've got a record now of success to build upon in all of those fronts. Progress that I firmly believe we could not have achieved without your partnership in our success, your partnership as advocates in DC or wherever you happen to be. The advocacy for our university and what it represents is incredibly important. And you've had real impact, and the victories that I'll kind of summarize, hopefully, has helped us achieve what we can now build on in this new year. Let me update you on some of the things. Core of our mission, of course, continues to be world-class education that we offer in Urbana-Champaign, Chicago, and Springfield. And we've got the tagline, altogether extraordinary, because you take those 3 universities together, and it is an amazing capability and set of assets. We offer education and opportunity that comes with more people now than ever before, with all-time historic highs. Enrollment this last fall reached a historic record of more than 94,800 students. And that's just a little bit less or close to the entire population of Peoria. So just think about the scale of this operation. And enrollment, as I mentioned last year, has been on a steady long-term upward trajectory, a planned trajectory for which we have a strategy. And we've been on that line for the last 7 years. And during that time frame, which is essentially the bulk of my presidency, we've grown 21% in terms of the student body. And that's important for the access we're determined to provide to world-class public higher education. And these are additional students. It's additional 16,300 students over the student body 7 years ago. And that's the equivalent of adding a mid-sized university to Illinois' higher education landscape. So on the demand side, access to world-class education, we've got a lot to feel good about. Of course, we're a little bit bursting at the seams because of this growth, but that is also an opportunity to recruit more world-class faculty as well. With more students, we have more opportunities. Every year, we graduate more than 24,000 students graduating with the University of Illinois degree, and that's a ticket to opportunity and jobs, changing the lives, not just of the graduates themselves, but their family and even the community around them. And while I'm incredibly proud of just the sheer number of alumni and its growth, making a difference in the nation's capital and all over the globe, I'm equally proud to say that most of our graduates, many of our graduates, choose to stay in this state of Illinois. That's 70% of the graduates stay in Illinois. They help create a modern workforce that Illinois needs for the new knowledge economy. They become taxpayers, they buy homes, they raise families, they buy hot dogs and consume them, but they're also civically engaged citizens. And that's an amazing contribution of human capital to our state. Just as importantly, our enrollment reflects our mission to serve the people of Illinois. More than 61,000 of our students are from the state, including 4 out of every 5 of our 59,000 undergraduates. There are very few state universities that can say such a thing about the focus on educating in-state residents. And I think the only Big Ten school that's close to this is Rutgers, for example. This planned, managed enrollment growth reflects our commitment to accessibility. Now, in the months ahead, we will also be ramping up an initiative announced last year after our past interaction that will make University of Illinois education more accessible to ethnic and racial minorities. And as you all know, this is an important aspect of building a workforce for the future. We call it Access 2030, and it's being created to increase the number of graduates from underrepresented groups by 50%, a quantitative goal by the end of the decade. And that goal includes doubling the number of graduating Black students. This will include students from all kinds of disadvantaged backgrounds, ethnic, racial, rural, and urban. And the new initiative is based on our belief in the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion, opening our doors ever wider, and our mission to educate diverse students from all backgrounds. And I can tell you that many companies really want to see a diverse, highly educated workforce, and it'll provide our state and our region with a competitive edge. Another key factor, though, in accessibility is affordability, and we're still relentlessly committed on that. We're concentrated on making sure that the education we offer remains affordable for students and their families. And to do this, we've frozen tuition, 0 increase, in 6 of the past 8 years. And the small increases in the other 2 years set by our Board of Trustees have been well below the rate of inflation. So we kept our costs down in order to provide access. And because of that, I believe we've seen this growth in enrollment. And of course, that brings more resources to the table too. We've also committed to providing financial aid at levels ever increasing that make a real difference in the lives of our students. For the current year, for example, we committed to providing $277 million in undergraduate aid, an increase of 6% over last year, and a figure that has grown by $138 million over the last 11 years. As a system, we provide more help for our students than Pell Grants, federal aid, and Illinois MAP grant programs combined. Those programs, of course, federal and state, are vital too, providing another $217 million this year. MAP, for those of you who don't know, is the monetary aid program, the state's primary financial aid program. And an increase in MAP seems very, very likely. I'm very optimistic that there will be another increase in MAP, thanks to your advocacy and our continued focus on financial aid. The Illinois Board of Higher Education just this week has requested $50 million in additional funding from the General Assembly. And about half of that $50 million goes to our students at the University of Illinois system. So we benefit and our students benefit from financial aid that seems to be on the upswing in the state. And as you'll hear in a few minutes, the federal component, Pell, is also an advocacy success story and an ongoing federal priority for us as we go forward. For more than a decade now, we've made financial aid a top concern. And this longstanding commitment means that more than 30% of our resident undergraduates pay no tuition at all. That's not very well known or appreciated. 30% pay no tuition, and about 2/3 pay less than the full price. The leadership of our universities is also pretty important here, and I believe that it's in the very best hands. And in Chicago and Springfield, that includes new leadership in this last year. Chancellor Janet Gooch, to the left, is now more than 6 months into her leadership of UIS, where this fall enrollment jumped more than 6% to almost 4,200 students at UIS. So we're seeing enrollment growth and developments under Janet's stewardship at UIS as well. UIC is being very capably led by interim Chancellor Javier Reyes, but in July we will welcome a new chancellor. You see her here, Marilyn Miranda from Notre Dame, where she has served as the provost at Notre Dame. And of course, at Urbana, we continue to enjoy the remarkable leadership and stability, innovative leadership under Chancellor Robert Jones, a reliable partner, wonderful friend, who's achieved robust growth and a powerful dynamism that if you visited the campus recently, you can see and perceive and appreciate, all while navigating a global pandemic in ways that are truly exceptional, as you possibly know. And I do want to mention that SHIELD, which is the word we use to point to the saliva-based COVID-19 test and trace system that we developed at the University of Illinois system, predominantly at Urbana-Champaign, where the saliva test was developed itself, a pioneering, unique test system almost 3 years ago now, maybe the most visible of all our pandemic achievements. And it continues to pay off for our universities in the state of Illinois. We still offer the test for free at all of our universities to keep students, faculty, and staff, as well as the communities around our campuses, safe. And a study published in Nature has demonstrated a 4-fold reduction in mortality in Champaign community, surrounded by and protected by our SHIELD capabilities over the last several years. In partnership with the Illinois Department of Public Health, IDPH, SHIELD at its peak was the test of choice for more than 1,800 K-12 schools across the state. Just think about that, the logistics, the personnel, the staffing to serve 1,800 schools and give the reassurance to parents and students of their safe environment. Several hundred schools continue to use it, and SHIELD T3, which is the for-profit unit created by the system to spread SHIELD outside of Illinois, is now a front runner in wastewater testing for COVID, RSV, and flu. And we have almost 80 sites doing wastewater analysis today in the state of Illinois. So it's a very densely documented state, perhaps the most in the country, where early warning signals will emerge from these measurements to point to future outbreaks, COVID, RSV, and flu. T3, by the way, also generated the funding to seed the just announced endowment that will help fund our Discovery Partners Institute in the years ahead. So it's been a win-win situation. And I just want to point out that we lost no students. No students were severely ill throughout this entire period. Speaking of DPI, or the Discovery Partners Institute, which is part of the Illinois Innovation Network, or what we call IIN, these are two initiatives that are steaming ahead and well now into their 3rd year of operation. They're already established success stories. First of all, they have solid backing of our partners in the state government. What you're looking at here is the design of the DPI headquarters which is funded by a state appropriation. And that's the Chicago River, right adjacent to downtown and needy communities in Chicago. But in the meantime, as that building gets put in place, we're up and running at 200 South Wacker. DPI has been fully funded for a couple of years now, and just last month, the state released another $37 million to fund permanent homes for 5 more of the Illinois Innovation Network's hubs around Illinois. So the University of Illinois system has created this network or ecosystem of innovation that will have DPI as a mothership, if you like, in Chicago, but 14 additional hubs scattered around the whole state, all interacting intensively with advanced cyber infrastructure, but creating workforces and opportunities in tailored ways, tailored to the needs and special characteristics of the individual regions. So emblematic of that partnership and DPI's importance, Governor Pritzker and Lieutenant Governor Stratton were with us last fall to unveil the design of the Institute's new Chicago's headquarters that you just saw. The glass and steel wonder will provide more than 200,000 square feet of office, classroom space, and event space along the river, transforming the South Loop and anchoring a new innovation district, which I like to think of as seed of many IPAs and a lot of wealth development, but also social equity that will reduce gaps in opportunity and participation in modern society. The headquarters symbolizes DPI's game-changing future, but the Institute is already delivering on its promise of transformative workforce and economic development for Chicago and the region. Just one example, DPI is currently training more than 300 students a year. These are non-baccalaureate students. These are almost apprenticeships, ranging in age from 14 to 63 for tech jobs, existing tech jobs, with guaranteed jobs after their training. And this is just one small part of DPI's plan to build out to many thousands of learners that can then have the skills and competencies to participate in the workforce. IIN, in the next slide, meanwhile, is at work changing lives across the state through its network of public university hubs. Every public university is involved under our leadership, and many community colleges and municipal entities as well. In Cairo, in far southern Illinois, for example, that's where this picture was taken, you'll find a real, true food desert with not even a single grocery in that town. But there will be now because we're putting one in. We know that people need economic opportunities to lift themselves up, but to take advantage of any opportunity, people first need the fundamentals, and that includes easy access to good nutrition. So we take as our land grant mission, in part, in significant part, the need to provide access to good nutrition, good educational opportunities, good healthcare distribution networks across the whole state. Now in Cairo, the only real local food source for the town's 1,700 citizens is the food pantry that you see us entering here. We stopped in there last year during our state leadership tour. IIN, though, is in part of a partnership that will see a new food market open later this spring. It will help support a broader state finance project to build a Mississippi River port and build up the local economic infrastructure. Cairo is at the northernmost limit of container transportation up the river. And so there's a very exciting future here. So there's an example of a regionally tailored economic, innovative component of our state that's dealing with issues as significant as food insecurity, healthcare insecurity. As our campuses grow, renewal and restoration is already apparent and moving forward in capital projects, thanks to state appropriations that reflect demand for what we offer and a strong sense of our momentum. And this includes the recently opened Siebel Center for Design, a multidisciplinary hub in Urbana-Champaign that's dedicated to human-centered design, made possible in part by a significant gift from the Thomas and Stacy Siebel Foundation. Not far to the north in Champaign, the new campus instructional facility has just been open for over a year and provides the university with 23 new classrooms, enough space for 2,400 students. So we're accommodating the growth in students. substantially through these capital investments. In Chicago, the new academic and residential complex contains both a 2-story academic building and a 10-story residence hall, brand new or a couple of years old, that provides home to more than 500 students. And in Springfield, the new $35 million Library, Learning, and Student Success Center is on the way, with construction expected to start later this year. There are numerous capital projects in the works at our 3 universities. So we're not sitting on our hands, we're building out the capabilities to support world-class educational opportunities for this growing student body we have here. I'd like to mention as well our success in philanthropy, and thank you all for having been involved in one way or another, but our universities each concluded really an incredibly successful philanthropic campaign, nested campaigns, 3 campaigns in an altogether envelope. With Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Ignite, called in Chicago, and Reaching Stellar is the titles of these 3 philanthropic campaigns. But between them, our donors, including many of you, I'm sure, provided $3.6 billion. And that's a year ahead of time. So this is far more than our goal. In fact, 117% more than our goal. So our community of alumni, supporters, have showed up for us, even through the COVID years. And this is a real testament to the trust and confidence that the U of I system has, and a sense of wind in our sails, momentum going forward. And of course, a lot of these dollars go directly to student stipends and scholarships. The financial backing, along with investment from many other sources, makes all we do possible. So let's talk a little bit about advocacy, starting with an overview of 2022. Paul, Melissa Haas, and their colleagues in our Office of External Relations and Communications worked tirelessly to advance our agenda here in Washington. I want to thank them personally, publicly, right here, urging Congress relentlessly to fund critical needs, such as the student aid that we talked about that makes a college education possible for many, as well as key research priorities that affect us directly. The U of I system works in partnership with others in higher education on many of the shared priorities, like double Pell. And this is the national campaign to convince Congress to double the size of the maximum Pell Grant award. We're strongly behind this. We were last year, and we continue to advocate strongly for it. Pell is vital at our universities. In the 2021-22 academic year, for example, for which we have the data, nearly 21,500 of our students relied on Pell, receiving over $105 million between them. So that's a really important fiscal, financial support staff from the federal government to our students. And advocacy in this arena works. Just last month, President Biden signed into law a bill that increases the maximum Pell Award by $500 to $7,395 a year. This is the largest increase in a decade. I think it's attributable to advocacy, our common advocacy, and it builds on the $400 increase that was made in FY 2022. But there's still not enough. Our work on Pell, though, is not done. There's still very significant unmet needs. So we and our colleagues, with your help across higher ed, will continue to push to double the maximum grant to $13,000 a year. Imagine what a difference that kind of money would make to recipients eligible for the maximum award. Undergraduate students facing exceptional financial need, and those for whom this help can mean the difference between staying in school or giving up on those dreams. So doubling the Pell maximum is a major plank in our advocacy going forward. Fellows chosen for our President's Executive Leadership Program, known as PELP, we call it PELP, have also proven to be excellent advocates for the system during seminars they attend in Washington, D.C. And if you've helped with that, thank you so much. PELP is a leadership development academy. It's a year-long program for senior level administrators and members of the faculty across the system who have high potential and interest in leadership roles. And we do a Washington, D.C. seminar, multi-day seminar. The last 2 cohorts have met with officials from NIH, the leadership of NIH, Department of Homeland Security and visited the Department of Education, National Science Foundation. They've met with many members of Congress. And our PELP leadership program is frankly, and this is maybe a double-edged sword, the current presidents of the University of Iowa, president of the University of South Carolina, president of the University of Wyoming, president of Hofstra University in Long Island, and a new president in a major new university in Saudi Arabia, all were involved in the PELP program. So we're seeding leadership, not just in our own system, but externally as well in other major institutions. And I take that as a badge of courage that we're developing leadership that counts. And so there's a diaspora of strong leaders from the University of Illinois that are out there. We also enjoy strong relationships with leaders and top administrators from federal agencies who regularly visit our campuses. And this is obviously a connection to Washington, D.C. Often this is in conjunction with the announcement of federal funding for important new projects. And last spring, NSF director, a friend of mine, Sarumathan Panchanathan, or we call him Panch, on the left there, came to the research park in Urbana to announce a new $40 million award divided between the National Center for Supercomputing Applications and Urbana's powerhouse Department of Computer Science to advance research in neuron-based computer systems and expand the capabilities of the national supercomputing infrastructure environment. And our federal team worked closely with the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research, here's Susan Martinez, to bring Panch to campus, along, of course, with one of our most important partners here in DC, Senator Durbin. These kind of visits really raise the stakes and visibility of the University of Illinois system. And of course, we welcome such visits enormously, and we keep putting proposals in. There'll be opportunities for additional visits down the road. These trips give us a chance to show important leaders what we can do and are doing. Through the work of external relations and communications at the system, we were also privileged to host U.S. Department of Education Undersecretary James Quall in Chicago last May to discuss the university's efforts to raise graduation rates and close equity gaps. Importantly, Undersecretary Quall, here third from the left, also engaged with our students on a pair of issue-oriented roundtables. So he met directly with our students. Here you see Interim Chancellor Javier Reyes and former Chancellor Michael Amaritis of UIC, who's now the president of the University of South Carolina. So our strong partnerships with leaders in Washington help drive research at our universities. Innovations that, as all you know, have changed the shape of modern life in so many ways. System-wide, federal research awards accounted for $645.6 million of our research spending in FY21. That's the most recent data we have. That's more than half of the $1.2 billion we devote to research for the year. That's $1.2 billion that comes to our state to create new knowledge and to conduct research that has important ramifications. And that's a big number. That puts us in the top 25 of innovative universities as per Reuters listing worldwide. So this is a worldwide exponent of research prowess at the University of Illinois. And the money is at work on so many projects: tech, agriculture, energy, water, arts, humanities, so much more. But let me give you just a couple of examples of research successes. The U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, provided a new $30 million investment in the Soybean Innovation Lab at Urbana to continue a 10-year project that's building up a robust soybean industry in sub-Saharan Africa. That's a big grant on a very important issue for sub-Saharan Africa and food security there. Elsewhere, the Department of Education is providing $13 million in area study centers at Urbana, which support international and foreign language teaching, research, and outreach. As we interact and connect globally, I can't tell you how important these kind of studies are. And in Chicago, UIC is on its 4th consecutive year of record high research funding. including $460 million in the most recent year at UIC. UIC is on a steep advancement curve in research, and this is more dollars in research than many universities that might be seen or thought about as being research powerhouses. I'm very proud of what's happening at UIC. Almost 3/4 of this funding is federal, and not surprisingly, given UIC's prowess in medical research, $192 million of those dollars come from NIH. So we're well known and highly regarded in NIH. But other federal agencies are also keenly aware of Chicago's medical excellence as well. DoD, for example, is providing $5.8 million to develop a new treatment for acute respiratory distress syndrome in COVID-19 patients. Not just federal research is important, but private research funding is also vital to our enterprise and on the uptick. The Bill and Melinda Gates Agricultural Innovations program, for example, has awarded $34 million to Urbana's Realizing Increased Photosynthetic Efficiency Project, or RIPE. The RIPE project, these are very creative acronyms, you can see, but RIPE is one of the answers to future food insecurity by increasing the productivity of green plants using photosynthetic efficiency programs, and strongly backed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Agricultural Innovations Program. In its 10-year history, RIPE research has driven already large increases in crop productivity necessary to feed a growing population, living in a rapidly changing global climate environment as well. In addition to the Pell successes I mentioned, we were also pleased to see advocacy efforts led by the URI system and others to help make the CHIPS and Science Act a law in 2022. This is a very significant new law. This provides $11 billion for the Department of Commerce for advanced microelectronics R&D. We're strong in those areas. There's another $2 billion for the Department of Defense to create a microelectronics commons, a national network providing direct pathways to commercialization for US microelectronic researchers and designers. And the NSF will have $200 million to help develop our all-important domestic semiconductor workforce. We're extremely well positioned to not just benefit from these new dollars, but actually move the dial on resiliency for the nation in terms of its semiconductor capabilities. Then President Biden also signed the Inflation Reduction Act this last year, which we advocated for. This major package addresses energy, climate, and healthcare needs and includes significant research funding. So now, with a new Congress in session, we had to think about what's coming next, and it's going to be based on everything I just said. So you won't see too many deviations from what we've been advocating for. Paul, Melissa, and colleagues from elsewhere in the U of I system are turning their attention to our top priorities for the coming year. And this is frankly where we really need your voices to help make our case. First, we're urging Congress, once again, to not only double the Pell support, but also to reauthorize the Higher Education Act. HEA is the broad legislation passed in 1965 that governs the administration of federal higher education programs, including all federal financial aid, and its reauthorization is long overdue. We will continue to advocate for that reauthorization. Through a reauthorized HEA, Congress could also lower the hurdles literally millions of students now face through an overly bureaucratic federal student aid verification process. We know, we're not naive, it may be tough with a divided Congress, but updates and improvements are needed across HEA to strengthen the higher education enterprise nationwide, and we will be strong voices in that regard. Second, we're pushing for Congress to take steps to promote innovation, economic growth, and workforce development. And you've seen how we're going about this with DPI and other things. And this means full support for key provisions of CHIPS and Science that were authorized but not funded for NSF, the Department of Commerce, and the Department of Energy Office of Science. So those are all important advocacy elements in 2023 for us. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Program, or DACA, remains high on our agenda because we have many students in that kind of state of limbo. We urge Congress and the Biden administration to work to enact comprehensive immigration reform that includes the DREAM Act. We look to your support for that advocacy. Dreamers, including some of our students, have lived in this uneasy limbo for too long. Expanded visa and citizenship opportunities for international students and high-skilled workers are a high priority as well. International students enrolled in universities across Illinois contributed more than $1.6 billion to the state's economy in the 2021 to 22 academic year and supported over 18,000 jobs. So we will continue to advocate for important international connections. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are bedrock principles of the U of I system, all the way back to the beginning of the land-grant mission, central to that mission of educating deserving students from all backgrounds. And in that spirit, we are urging Congress to increase support for programs such as the Department of Education's TRIO program, which assists people from low-income backgrounds, first-generation college students, and those with disabilities as they advance through the education pipeline. Strong support for minority-serving institutions. UIC as a minority-serving institution is imperative for us as well, so we'll be advocating for that. Key to any equitable society and to a sustainable economy is access to quality health care. And that's why we're opening up a food co-op in Cairo, frankly. But there's much more that's needed for access to quality health care. Through UI Health, which is 25% of our budget system-wide, the U of I system operates a healthcare enterprise that includes a 450-bed hospital, 40-plus outpatient clinics, 13 federally qualified mile-square health centers, and the University of Illinois Cancer Center. So we have a network of highly capable healthcare distribution that is really important. And as you've seen, NIH support is very significant in that enterprise. This enterprise and the many thousands who rely on it need support from Congress for expanded access to Medicaid. So we'll be advocating for that, and guarantees that Medicare remains stable and undiluted, and continued support for the 340B prescription drug program. These are all part of our advocacy platform. 340B, as you know, allows UI Health to leverage drug discounts from pharmaceutical companies that ensure patients can access care they would otherwise not receive at no cost to taxpayers. Proposals to change the program could make it difficult to provide access to some drugs. So we're going to de-advocate for some legislative initiatives as well as advocate for others. We also need continued federal funding for graduate medical education, which is vital to our efforts to train the next generation of doctors, including the more than 1,100 residents sponsored by the UIC College of Medicine every year. The final priority I'll mention today is one that has the broadest reach, perhaps the greatest long-term impact, and presents the most pressing need, and that's climate change, which threatens us all. But our researchers, as you've seen with our photosynthetic innovation, like their colleagues around the globe, are at work, intensive work on solutions, mitigation, adaptation, all factors in cities and rural areas, water, energy, all those things, from increasing food production efficiency to protecting the most vulnerable by ensuring that decisions on climate policy are equitable. And we stand ready, and we have unbelievable assets and expertise to bring to this table. The last Congress provided crucial support for clean energy and climate resilient infrastructure through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. Those are welcome steps for us because they address this issue of how to create human welfare into the future, given that the global environment has resource limitations and is also undergoing change. Now we need Congress, and we'll be shameless about advocating for this, to build on those efforts by continuing to provide robust support for climate research, computational scenarios, understanding of all the aspects, human decision-making under risk and uncertainty, and all the things that go into this, and ensuring that funds from earlier legislation are swiftly and effectively distributed. So you can see we have a lot to talk about from past work. a lot of thank yous for everything that you do, for your participating today, for your paying attention. Universities like ours are really important assets. And we need to every day think about what we can do to actually redouble our efforts for societal impact. And that means opening our doors, making sure that we never sacrifice excellence, but that we have an impact on new knowledge development, on knowledge dissemination at scale that supports societal function, and to do that in ways that make you all proud. So thank you all for being here and the opportunity to discuss priorities, and look forward to any questions you might have for me.
Thank you, President Killeen. As I mentioned, we've received a number of questions already. If there are any more, please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A function. In the remaining 17 or so minutes, we're going to try to get through as many as we can. And in the interest of time, I may combine them into just one question when we have a couple questions on the same topic. I'll start with this one. President Killeen, what are the university's priorities for the pursuit of grants and other federal funding opportunities going forward?
Well, thanks. Our priorities are to be uber competitive in our grant proposals, to take advantage of opportunities as they emerge, and then to have successful programs, because success breeds more success in this competitive grant and funding application reference frame. We've been extremely successful. We are still the #1 university for NSF funding, and I was at NSF for 4 years. I know how competitive those funding opportunities are. So we're actively pursuing federal grant opportunities all the time. We've got vice chancellors for research that make sure that this is all handled in a way that's all compliant and meeting all regulatory needs and environments. But we're creative. Our faculty are amazingly creative. They write well. We submit grant applications all the time, and we are successful a lot of the time. And as you've seen with the big numbers there. So we want to continue that participation. On the large side of these huge opportunities that are present today, just this week, we submitted two proposals to the NSF to lead regional innovation engines. These are like $160 million 10-year efforts that take a lot of work to pull together the partnerships and the proposals. Ambitious NSF initiative to foster innovation ecosystems across the country. We believe we can lead the Midwest in creating an innovation ecosystem. So we've put our proposal in, and that's something we know a thing or two about. We're also part of a major new proposal for the Department of Energy to create a 7-state hydrogen hub for the Midwest. This is moving the whole energy economy and system to one that's more dependent on hydrogen, which has lower impacts. And that's exciting too, because we put together and worked hard to have multiple institutions, many states involved. So we're heavily involved. We're working with the CHIPS Act and all of the opportunities that are out there. So our priorities are very multifaceted in the pursuit of grants. We go for the big fish with big hooks on long lines, and we go for the little fish as well. And we do it with a spirit of, I think, a unique spirit of interdisciplinary collaboration, hard work, talent, and then we follow through on those opportunities to make sure that we are successfully creating new knowledge, getting it published and distributing it through either commercialization vehicles or other vehicles into the public domain. And we're known around the world for doing this, incidentally. It's not new for us. So that's a kind of an easy question to address, I think. Yes, and everything is the answer.
Okay, we'll take a little harder question this time. 2 questions, I'll combine them. How will the university attempt to work collaboratively with a new Republican-controlled House? And does the U of I's federal agenda change when the other party takes control?
Well, the first thing to say is that we're not a partisan entity in any regard. Obviously, individuals may have leanings one way or another, but the University of Illinois system is not, I wouldn't say nonpartisan, I'd say apartisan. Right? The one thing that we do care about intensively and at all times is our student experience. So no matter where the students come from, what they look like, how they got here, they are our #1 priority. So we will never sort of go away from that relentless focus on students. But we work well, I would say, with legislative leaders, both statewide, local, and in the federal community. You know this well, Paul, yourself. I'm in contact with both sides of the aisle. I feel like we're blessed with a great federal delegation from the state of Illinois, and we've got really good interactions with them. We participate in many things that they're interested in their local regions, and we work well across the aisle. And you get a sense of our priorities, which I think are essentially priorities that both sides would inherently agree to. So if you compare our federal agenda for this new Congress with our federal agenda for the last Congress, not very different. Consistency is important. We're moving forward. We're taking advantage of the opportunities that are on the table. We're seeking expansion of those kinds of opportunities, and we're in good contact with our bipartisan representatives, and we're going to continue that perspective.
Great. I'm going to throw two more questions at you. How can individuals be a part of advocating for these priorities, and how will these priorities impact other state colleges?
Well, I think the first thing to say is thank you for being advocates. I mean, just showing up on this call is something that I think obviously indicates support for our essential mission. You may have issues one way or another on aspects of it, but we would like all of you to join, if you're not already a member, the Illinois Connection, which is our kind of single-stop advocacy program. It's a 1 or 2 clicks to get, all of the materials from Illinois Connection that would reflect the kinds of priorities that I just put forward. So Illinois Connection has grown rapidly, and we're able to have a strong presence in advocacy for higher education. And we work seamlessly with other institutions of higher education. So it's not just us alone shouldering the burden, but we participate in all the professional associations. So individuals can plug into this, showing up at events like this, writing emails. If you join Illinois Connection, we make it really easy to know where the emails should go and what they might say. Of course, you can tailor them to your own interests. But please become an advocate. I think our entire state benefits directly. I think what I said already demonstrates the benefits that flow to our citizenry from advocacy for many of these priorities. And so now's not the time to give up or lose traction on these important things. And what we can promise you all is that we will do our very best to be upstanding, to be full of integrity, to be transparent, to follow through. And Paul, your office, and Melissa, are available to interact any way you'd like, particularly in the DC setting. That's so important for us, as I've tried to stress. So please become an advocate. And if you feel like we're going down the wrong path, then let us know what your best ideas are, so we're also a petri dish of ideas, debates, discussions, and so we highly value all strands of opinion as well. And diversity of viewpoint is really important for us, actually. That universities should be the places where a diversity of viewpoint kind of comes out and enriches the overall standing and perspective. But a system like the University of Illinois is a good thing. It's important. Public good flows from it. So let's all work together in advocacy.
Terrific. And we put in the chat a link for those who are interested in signing up for Illinois Connection. Please click on that. Switching topics, what is leadership planning to do to boost completion and retention rates of Black students within the U of I system?
Well, as I mentioned, we have this new priority Access 2030. I kind of glossed over it, but it's got a strong focus on underrepresented minority students. And the first thing to say about African-American students or Black students at U of I is when they come to our classes, they do really well. The retention rates are above national norms. Graduation rates are above local norms. significantly above national norms. They have less debt. They pay down their debt fast. They get jobs. So on every factor, we do a good job of educating for participation in civil society, African American students. We need to close some gaps in terms of different categories, and we're working intentionally on that. We have an emphasis, as I stressed, on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I would say the inclusion, the I piece, is really important. We want to make sure everybody, no matter their background, international students, students from different racial, ethnic, religious backgrounds, feel like they are welcomed and represent and appreciated in our community. So we need to work hard on that, because as you know, there's social media issues, there's tension in society, but we want to do it in the context of a world-class educational setting, because that's optimal. We do have a plan for African-American graduation rates to double it by 2030, and that's not that far away. And we're working on how to do that. It obviously means focus on college readiness. It means a focus on recruitment and retention. It means a focus on what we call bridge programs, so that students, when they arrive, are optimally prepared for participation on our campuses. All of these things move the dial in the right direction. And we need to be out and about. I kind of stress this myself. We need to be, talking to high school counselors. We need to be competing for the attention. We need to do a better job of marketing and branding and messaging and the importance of what we're doing for all types of students. So for Black students in particular, we're focused on that. We have an Office of Minority Student Affairs at UIC. We've got an African American Academic Network at UIC. We've got specific programs at UIS. So there's a lot of specifics as well that go into this commitment to, but the shorthand is we want to support all students: access, affordability, completion, retention, success, lifelong connection back to this incredible university. And we need to continue to do better on all of those fronts.
Excellent. I'm going to throw two more questions at you. Does the federal government plan to make it easier for foreign students to move from F1 student visas to permanent residency? And how is the U of I supporting foreign-born students?
Well, does the federal government plan? I don't have direct privy into what the federal government is planning in terms of, complex, comprehensive immigration reform. I think we need it as a country. And I speak actually, not even a first-generation immigrant. I'm an immigrant. I came to the country to study and to learn, and I just feel so inextricably connected to the American experiment and everything it means for people. So it's a top priority for our system to influence federal government planning and thinking about comprehensive immigration reform. And we know that foreign students add a lot of value. I've stressed, that we have many more local students from Illinois, so we're never going to go displace Illinois college-ready students with foreign students. But the foreign student component on our campuses adds immeasurably to the learning. The global engagement, the connection to an appreciation for other cultures, other languages, other ways of looking at life. So it's an arena where I believe that the federal government has to really come together. And I just want to call out Congressman Bill Foster. He's in our congressional delegation. He's been a particular champion on the issue of F1 student visas, which was in the specific question. And we, as I said before, we remain concerned about legal challenges to DACA, because we've got many students who are in that category. And we do urge Congress to pass bipartisan legislation to help with that. So where I don't know, I can't speak for the federal government, which is kind of like the question kind of implied that I might be able to. I can't, but we're going to advocate for an appropriate balance of educational attainment, for infusion of other ideas, backgrounds, etc. And of course, immigration has been historically incredibly important to the development of this country and what it stands for and represents. So, but again, everything I say has a student focus to it. That's where our relentless focus is always on the student experience.
Wonderful. We have time for just one more question, I think, about 2 minutes remaining. I'm going to ask this you. It's actually a three-part question, so I'll let you choose which part you want to answer. What is the ultimate long-term goal of DPI? What are you trying to establish for change? And what's unique about DPI or cutting edge?
Well, I'm very excited about DPI. It's turning a lot of heads nationally, frankly. It's bringing together through partnerships. That's where the P in DPI is about partnerships, regional partnerships, global partnerships, partnerships across different parts of our university system to actually develop, attract, retain talent, and create solutions to society's most pressing problems through research, commercialization, etc., and do it with a public, private, governmental tripod participation. We're up and running. We're focusing on three things right now: training people for in-demand tech jobs, a diverse workforce, that's needed to sustain and grow the modern knowledge economy. We're doing that. We're doing that at scale. We're funding and conducting applied R&D research. We launched Shield T3, which, as I mentioned, is $100 million business, right, that came out of DPI. So we know we can commercialize university-created R&D in ways that really address the public good. And then launching new businesses based on university technology. We're already preparing many hundreds of students. We need to get to many thousands of students. And not just baccalaureate students, but learners of all types, including, non-traditional learners. And then just the final thing to say about, what I think we've got an incredible opportunity, because the DPI building that I showed and then went away from, then came back on, Paul, it is on a 62-acre empty site in a world city called Chicago. The opportunity to create a kind of innovation ecosystem that the world has not seen before, that is not only about the IPOs and the billionaires, but it's about the lifting society up so that communities don't get left behind, and doing it with the vibrancy of this kind of learning organization through partnerships is amazing. So it's not like Silicon Valley, it's let's leapfrog and create a new kind of innovation ecosystem that drives a human welfare into the future in a way that supports the city, the region, and the public through education, research, and service, which is our essential mission. We got a great opportunity to do that in an unprecedented way, and we're up and running.
Perfect. And with that, we are out of time. I promised we would cover a lot today. We have done that, I think. President Killeen, thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank everyone who signed on as well. And we urge you to stay in touch with us as we look forward to another busy and productive year in 2023. Thank you all.
Well, if I could just quickly say thank you to everybody who's put commentary in the chat. We'll try to get to everything. Thank you for all your participation as well.